the last pages of Ayin Beis of survey.
Kuf Nun Zayin?
Kuf Nun Zayin, at the bottom, Kuf Nun Zayin.
Yeah, we left the last line. Oh no, we went to the next page last time.
Okay. Yeah, you're on to the next page, but we have to start before in order to have a beginning.
I'll be to wash the glasses.
Okay. We'll start the fifth line from the bottom very quickly, just to have a step in. At the end of that line, the fifth line from the bottom, it says, "V'zehu shenikra Kabbalah Shem." So this is what's called Kabbalah Shem. This is what we explained just before, that he is dedicated to the service because he was given this duty, not because of his own choice, of his own appreciation. This is what's called Kabbalah Shem. Lishloil, that is to counter that, say, now this connection and this obedience is not because of Tzamadas, because he appreciates, he understands what he's doing, which is his own conviction. That except only Mishum Elo Abda Shekim. It is only due to the yoke of servitude that he took upon himself. This is what an Eved is. And he doesn't have Rotzen. He is just following and being influenced by his master. Avo, the third line from the bottom. Avo, however, in truth, there is therein Rotzon, a neshama will, and moreover, Tainuk, a delight in this relationship and in this service. We already discussed the influence by the word Be'emes, a very profound, a very significant allusion. It is important to always remember, no matter what situation a person is and what he is in fact involved in, whether it is in learning Torah or it is in business or whatever it is. There's an emes quality there. The emes quality that represents the divine presence, the divine will that there should be this activity. If you build a house for yourself and you're proud of your home, it should be understood that the real impetus, inspiration for this house is really the divine presence in the world. Not for that, there would not be that spirit to go and start building a whole house from scratch. It is only because one recognizes that there is a living world and there is a divine spirit in the world. One can undertake to do anything in the world, anything, even to start building a new home, to build your shul, whatever it is. And this three lines on the bottom, be'emes yed b'dorot time. Every person appreciates this. has a personal appreciation, a rotzen, and a will, a draw to do it, and also a delight in doing it. He is doing it because he appreciates, he enjoys doing it. At the end of the third line, Rak accept. The Yinyan Kabbalah Shomayim, who? Where does the term Kabbalah Shomayim come into this? Since, in fact, it is not Kabbalah sale, it is something that he personally appreciates. Thank you. Excuse me, duty calls. From the emes perspective, meaning from the level of inspiration that a person has, and everything in the world has, the truth of its presence. The truth of the presence of everything is that this is a divine creation. This truth provides for a powerful appreciation, rotzen and will, and a desire, delight, everything that takes place. And therefore, there is not a need for any kind of superimposition. What's called Kabbalah sale, acceptance of the yoke, because everyone appreciates being a participant in the world, in the truth. And now the last line on third, the last word on the last third line by the bottom. Rak accept. What then is the principle? If you're constantly speaking about Kabbalah Shomayim, in other words, since that we concluded now that it's in fact appreciated personally, so why you call Kabbalah Shomayim? You like it? What is the principle of Kabbalah Shomayim? Who? The whole principle of Kabbalah Shomayim is not what you're doing. What you're doing, you appreciate and enjoy. There's no question about it. Kabbalah Shomayim is in the fact that there should not be, or there shall not be, any kind of interference and any kind of obstruction in his path. In other words, on the get-go, on the first step, before he even knows what he's going to be confronting, he had already resolved that he is in the service of Malchus Shamayim, and therefore he will pursue this path as far as he needs to go without accepting any interference. This is Kabbalah Shamayim. Doesn't even know what he is confronting, doesn't even know what he is negating. Kabbalah Shamayim means that he says, I am not under my own control. I'm doing what I am told to do. And that's what Kabbalah Shamayim, that there should not be, there shall not be, there will not be accepted any kind of interferences with this path. I feel about one, this is two lines in the bottom of the end. I feel about one, even such things that he has no will for. Furthermore, the actual opposite of what he prefers. Nonetheless, he has this commitment. This is Kabbalah Shamayim. Now, the last line in the page. However, after all is said and done, with all that commitment, really this is a low madrege in others. And we shall see in a moment what's low about it. This would be a complete dedication. And yet, this is a low madrege in others. V'hu inyan evet knani, which is described by the term of evet knani. Evet knani means an evet who is by nature an evet. Shein lei shum rotz. I'm turning the page. Shein lei shum rotz. What's evet knani? I'd like you to understand these are very brief words, but they say the whole thing. Shein lei shum rotz. He has absolutely no will for anything. The entire mitzvahs of the world and anything that transpires does not arouse his curiosity and interest. He's completely oblivious to all that's transpiring right in front of him. He's disinterested in the entire environment. That's the Evet Kanani. No matter what he sees, does not arouse his curiosity. He's almost lifeless at the Rotzen level. Doesn't want anything. What then makes him do things? And he acts rak mitzad oil ha'oder sholo. Only because of the yoke of the master that has been imposed upon him. In other words, he is not his own person. He doesn't make decisions on the basis of his presence in the world. He makes decisions on the basis of the ordering of his connection to the ordering. The ordering is his world. The ordering and the yoke of the ordering, this is his whole world. And this is why this is called a low level. Why do you call it a low level? Because he's only aware of his own duty. He's not aware of the reality of the whole world. He's not part of the world. He only knows what his duty is. That's called a low level. And we can understand why this is called a low level. It's a very small sense of existence. As I said, he's not even aware that there's a big world. And he does not, in any which way, arouse his interest to know what's going on in the world. That's what it's called a low level. This is called Evet Kanani, who does not have a curiosity of his own on his own. What's going on? That's what's called a low level. Avol, however, okay, in the middle of the top line, Amit is in Kabbalah Shemach Shemayim. The true inyan of Kabbalah Shemach Shemayim. Again, we have to focus on the words of the Maimon. The inyan Kabbalah Shemach Shemayim. Not the act and the experience, but the inyan, the significance of Kabbalah Shemach Shemayim. The two significance Kabbalah Shemach Shemayim. If a person acts and does exactly what he was told to do, because it was imposed upon him to do what he was told to do, He doesn't have Malchus Shomayim in his consciousness. He has personal obedience. Inyan, the significance, the purpose, and the impact of Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim. Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim is that there is a Malchus Shomayim. There isn't not only my obedience. There's a Malchus Shomayim that I'm obeying. That's the Inyan of Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim. That's true in Inyan of Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim. It's not just his obedience. It's the Malchus Shomayim that is embracing him. Amit is Inyan of Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim. Who? When is that manifest? It is that in fact he does have a will, he does have a delight in his avodah. Why does he have a will and a delight in avodah? Because he is aware of the greatness of the environment in which he functions, and he wants to be a participant in this greatness. He wants and he delights in it. He really appreciates, he really delights in this experience, in this participation. And yet it's called Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim. If he delights in it, what do you call Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim? He's enjoying it, so to speak. So the Rebbe explains, where is the Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim really come in? Since he is a fully functioning and intelligent and emotionally aware person, and he really appreciates what's going on, and he has lots of time against this. Why is it Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim? Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim is a very subtle point in this entire relationship. Okay? In the middle of the second line from the top, Rak except Shein Zeh L'Tzerech Atzmi. The Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim aspect is recognizable in the fact that whatever he does, despite the fact that he appreciates it and knows what it is, he's not doing it, doesn't do it because he appreciates it. He does it because it's a duty to do it. Despite the fact that it's enjoyable and so forth. He's not doing it for his own sake and from his own enjoyment perspective. That's Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim. Kanal, as we explained earlier. This is already quite a, so to speak, a challenging concept. He has a full cognizance of the greatness that's going on, and he appreciates it. Even to the extent that we say he enjoys it. And yet, he's not doing it because of that enjoyment. He's not doing it because of that understanding. He is doing it only because the Rebbe wants him to do it. Despite the fact that he is in full cognizance of the greatness of what he is doing. The Rebbe once explained an interesting thing in a Chumash. It says in the Pasuk, when the Rebbe gave the mitzvah of lighting the candles, the menorah, and there were certain details how you should light the candles and so forth. So it says there, Vayas Kein Aharon. And Aaron did so as he was told to do. he lit the candles, turned in the direction that they should be, that the Rebbe should want him to do. Aaron did so as he was told. So Rashi says right away, what is the pasuk telling us of Yahaskein Aaron? Of course, he was told to do it this way, he will do it. What is the point? And the pasuk emphasizes, Yahaskein Aaron, Aaron did it like that. And the pasuk repeats, how did he do it? So Rashi says, this is Hagish Shvach Aaron. The pasuk is emphasizing to tell you the shvach, the praiseworthiness of Aaron. What? That he did not change. So the Rebbe asks him a paramount question. Why should he change? Maybe just said, like we should face this way, they face this way. So Yashkenari. And Asher says, Shoishino, you didn't change. And that's what the Pasuk says. Maybe the emphasis to emphasize the praiseworthiness of Aaron. The Rebbe explained, the point in this praiseworthiness is this. Aaron again came up to light the candles, the lights of the menorah. The menorah represents the seven rungs of the menorah representing the Neshama Yisrael. By lighting a candle, he is illuminating, he is kindling the Neshamas. And Aaron was fully aware of the power of what he is doing, the effect of lighting the candles. He's standing there, and he's lighting the candles, and he knows he's not lighting candles, he's lighting the Neshamas. And then you were told, you light the Neshamas, but do exactly this way. Put the wick this direction, in this direction, and so forth. So the Rebbe says, a human being doing such phenomenal things, lighting in the Neshamas, and he's doing it with his physical action. And he has precise instruction how he should do it, while he is aware that actually he is turning the whole world upside down with this. He's illuminating the whole world. To be in such a state, he knows he's illuminating the whole world. At the same time, to be able to pay attention to detail, which direction is the wick and so forth. That is a praiseworthy quality in Aaron. Aaron was so totally dedicated to the command from Meibushin that despite the fact that he knew the greatness of what he's doing, he did it precisely the way he was told to do. As if he's doing, as if it's a simpleton, as if he doesn't have no appreciation of what he's doing. This is what the Rebbe says. Aaron was told what he's going to accomplish, how he should do it. Aaron continued to do it and did it exactly the way he should be doing, despite the fact that he knew the greatness of what he was doing. The Rebbe then specifically said, Aaron had to pour the oil into the cups of the menorah, knowing the significance of what he was doing. Not to spill a drop of this oil was he needed tremendous self-control. Aaron did exactly the way he think. There was no extraneous error of any kind. This is the greatest of Aaron. He knew the significance of what he was doing, and it did not affect his act. The action was exactly the way it should be. That's an interesting thing. This is Rabbi then explained that. And this is what the Rebbe says here. But it's not his personal experience. On a personal basis, he's doing exactly what he's told to do. Even though he knows exactly what the significance of.
What type of evidence is the Rebbe talking about when he says, Aval Amita Sinyan Kabbalah?
This is what he's talking about. That's what I'm explaining.
What type of Eved?
Oh,
Not a Kanani. It's contrasting to Kanani.
not
what
a
is
Knani, not one who does not have any rotz. He appreciates, he knows what he's doing. Yes,
what,
but he's obedient. He follows the instruction from above.
which type of Eved is that?
I don't know which question means. Which type of evidence? I mean, what his title is.
Yeah, like there's different types of Eved in Chassidus. There's different titles. So it doesn't, the Rebbe's not saying the name here.
All right,
So,
no, the Rebbe is not saying the name. The Rebbe is not saying the name, so we can learn it without the name.
okay.
Can we say that some Eved knows what Kabbalah Sol Mashkut Shamayim is and others don't?
But that's what the Rebbe says. Evet Kanani does not appreciate it. But the truth in Kabbalah Shamayim is that he does appreciate it. But it's not the Tzerech Hatzmi. And I give you the example of Aaron HaKohen. And the Rebbe explained it at that time. Aaron HaKohen had to light the candles with the menorah. And he knew all the profound effects of that lighting. And he was not personally affected by it to the extent that he should be excited in what he's doing. He was focused entirely on what he is doing. This is what the Rebbeinu wants, and he's doing it at the highest level, and he does not draw himself into to enjoy and appreciate what he's doing. To do things exactly only because the Rebbeinu wants, not because he knows how great it is on the human level. Okay, so we are in the second half of the second line on page Kuf Nun Ches. Angel is he has a tiny rotzen in his avodah. That's real in the Kabbalah sale, but not the Tzerech Hatzmi. And that's where the Kabbalah sale Malchus Shomayim comes in. He knows the significance of what he's doing, and yet he is not involved in the fact that he knows what significance. He's involved with the Rebbe only in that what the Rebbe still wants him to do. Canal. Okay, towards the end of the second line, this koyach, this ability, is really a phenomenal ability. And therefore it is uniquely the property of Neshamas Yisrael to be, so to speak, at the highest level and act as if you're on the lowest level. To be at the highest level and fully appreciating the greatness of what you're doing and act as if you not appreciate anything, you just do what you're told to do. This is a koyach which is unique to Neshamas Yisrael. It's very difficult even to imagine a human being to be at the highest and the lowest level at the same time. At the highest level of recognizing the union of Elokus and living with it, and at the same time acting on the lowest level of the worldly level. This koyach is Neshamas Yisrael. How the Neshamas Yisrael have this kind of a spread from the highest to the lowest all in the same neshama. How do they get this capability? Mipnei, so the Rebbe explained, Mipnei. They have this koyach because of the fact shemushroshim bibchinas ak. Because they are rooted, the neshamas Israel are rooted, are sourced, and they are supported, so to speak. The basis of their self-awareness is the union of Odom Kadmi. Odom Kadmi. Odom Kadmi, we already discussed a little bit. Now we'll have to go a little bit more deep into it. But the principle of Odom Kadmi is, the principle of Odom. Odom is the full spread of the human qualities, starting from Oileg and Rotzen and Seichel and Midas. At the same time, this is Kadmi. Kadmi means precedes the creation, the way it is in the divine concept. That's Odom Kadmi. Neshamas Yisrael have their root, have their support by their connection and being included in Odom Kadmi. In Odom, which is a full regalia of all the koiches, but Kadmi, prior to creation, the way it is conceptualized in the divine level, within the divine truth. This Odom Kadmon aspect provides the Neshamas Yisrael with the ability to have the highest madrigas of Rotzen Eliki and to be superior to that, not to be swayed by it. Not to be excited by the greatness of what he's doing, because he's connected to that which is even higher than that, to the source of it, Odom Kadmi. The source of the Rotzen Eliki. And the Rebbe explains what we call specifics. The Hine, behold, Adam Kadmoi, this pristine man, the man aspect before the creation, Nikra, this is referred to as, it's identified, Raiva, the whole Raivin. The word Raiva means desire. Rava, the whole Rava means the source of will, the will for all wills. Rashi, the Rebbe explains, the will for Rotz. Now we have to stop for a moment, or for more than a moment, and reflect. What does Rotzen lerotzen mean? Since we are in the human arena, we have to try and identify Rotzen lerotzen within this human worldly arena. We know, for example, Rotzen lerotzen, I'll try to expose it. We know, unfortunately, in our world, there are instances where people become Rahman depressed, despondent. You cannot arouse their interest to anything. They just have no interest in anything. No matter how enjoyable or how grand and how challenging it is, it does not pique their interest. Why is that? How is this possible? The answer is, it's possible because Rotzen means the will. The will, as we know, the will is the source, is the power behind all actions. The will itself, however, also needs a source, also needs an inspiration. Yeah, it's a source of all actions. But where is the will? Where is the inspiration for the will itself? Why should I want? The principle of the will, of the source for the will, but it's called over here in the Maimer Rotzen, Nur Rotzen. That is a very important concept. Where does the Rotzen and the Rotzen come from? One has a will, has a will. But what if it doesn't have the will? Where is the will itself based on? Where does the will itself come from? What arouses that the will should be willing? Because the Rotzen, the Rotzen. Rotzen, the Rotzen. The Rebbe says, this is what's called Odom Kalmin. Ak. And here's where we have to stop and try to bring it down to our level. What is Odom Kalmin? I will give again an extremely simple, down-to-earth mashal. At our level and our experience. Very interesting thing. Every person gets married, and the first hope for marriage is that he should have children. He should have children, and the children should be healthy and well and should go in the right way and so forth. That's his hope. Now, when one has a child, clearly, he is focused on to see that the child should be a happy child, and he should go in the right way, and should develop and so forth. But prior to his having a child, he already projects that he, like we say, the bracha that we they should have children. He has no children yet. Why is he care that the children should be mitzvahs? Now, before he even have a child, he already has a desire that there should be children, not just plain children, but children that good children. Good children that don't exist. Why does he have such a desire for this? he has a child, surely he wants a child to be a good child. But the child, before he's a child, so what does a good child have to do with it? This good child desire is called rotzen l'rotzen. This is the will, so that entices him to have children in the first place. A person wants children, he doesn't want children, good children. This is rotzen l'rotzen. He has a will for something that does not yet exist. And he wants that which doesn't exist. He wants it to be in a certain way. This is the Indian Neshomis Israel, Amushas in Odom Kadmi, Rabbi the Chorabi, the will for the will. This is what a Yid is. He's not only interested that which there is should be good and healthy. He wants to create from scratch that which doesn't exist, and it should exist, and it should be good and healthy. He's concerned about being good and healthy before it comes into being. This is called Rotzen l'Rotzen, which is Odom Kadmi. Odom Kadmi means, as we said, pristine man. The unit from man, the unit of a human being, of a will, before anything begins.
Rabbi?
Yes, 1 second. Let me see. I'm finishing. Okay, yes, go ahead.
I'm noticing that it's 10:02. Maybe we can pause here for discussion and check if anybody has posted anything in the chat. Otherwise, nope.
Okay.
Otherwise, if I could pick up.
Okay, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. We can interrupt here.
Okay. So, just picking up on this very last point. We went from
who says you get to go first?
As the
Baruch.
As the 10-minute coordinator, I'm taking.
I'm only teasing him, Rabbi Paltiel.
I know you are, and that makes things Lebedik. Okay, go ahead.
Lebedik.
The guy. What did we say here? The guy who was depressed. He's lost his interest in anything. Grandeur, pleasure, whatever is of no interest. So then we went to say there has to be ratzon, l'ratzon, something underlying, a foundation for will, and that was answered by indicating ak. But then the mashal for that was the couple and their desire that the children not yet born will have these qualities. I'm not getting how that is. Really, I'm trying to follow where we're pointing to or looking at something more foundational than will. What is driving the will, the ratzon, l'ratzon, and I'm not really hearing what that element is.
All right. Being people in the world, we tend to identify things on the worldly level. If I eat, I want to eat something that's tasty. Something that is acceptable, so to speak, in a worldly experience. But then, there is an element in all of us. Some of us are aware of it, some are not aware of it. Like we said in the most of the children. I want good children, but I want good children before I even have children. Not because I have children, I want to make sure that they are good. I have children, I want to make sure they're good. That's already in the worldly context. But to want to have children, when there is none, not only they should have, but it should be good. That is already a part projection. This is projection. Wait 1 second. Where do you get that idea? That they should have children and they should be good children.
You're saying projection, what is the word there?
1 second. That's not that does not come from worldly experience. That idea comes from prior to the creation. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I think I'm hearing that it's projecting, and it's deeper than a worldly experience. It's not qualities of a worldly entity. It is something essential outside of world. Okay.
And
if we just, fine. And if we just get back to our depressed individual, this is not really showing, is this kind of indicating a way out for this guy, or we're not talking about anything therapeutic, we're just describing the way things really work? Well, let's put it differently. The guy who's depressed, he needs to get back in touch with a level that precedes any worldly ratzon.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And that seems, okay, fine. And the fact that it seems very difficult, that's kind of besides the point, but there is always a path back to one's basic human ratzon, le ratzon. That's always kind of intact, but hidden, etc.
That ratzon, le ratzon, is not human. It's prior to human. It's superhuman. Like we said before, in terms of having a child. If you have a child, you want a good child. But they have no children, so what are you worried about? You have no stake in the world, a big deal. Why should you want to have a stake in the world? This rotzin, le rotzin, that connects us, connects the human soul to the divine will rather than to his worldly experience.
Okay,
let me just finish. We want to have children, not because that enhances our worldly experience, but because that brings the divine truth into our life.
And so that brings us back to sort of Kabbalah's all, right? I'm not getting into raising a family for my glory, but rather for his.
Because of Abish's presence.
Yeah.
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 Any other questions?
Well, any other questions? I want to discuss Rotzen le Rotzen. If you have no other questions, I want to discuss a little bit Rotzen le Rotzen.
Okay.
Rotzen le Rotzen, we have to stop and think more deeply into our own intelligence, our own mind. As we said before, if I have something, I want it to be good. But prior to having anything, it's not enough that I want to have something. I want to have something that is good. But that something doesn't exist yet. Where is this Rotzen, Le Rotzen come from? This Rotzen, Le Rotzen comes from the following principle. We speak about this very often. We are keenly aware in a subtle way, and yet we are keenly aware that the world is not an entity as a presence, as in itself. It's a created entity. It's brought into being by a creator. It's not a stagnant presence. It's constantly being created. This principle that it's being created and there is life behind its presence because it's being created by the will of the creator. This is what gives our world a living quality. It gives our world a quality that not only that it should be good, that which is, but we want it to develop more and more. We have a Rotzen, Le Rotzen. We want to develop more and more. The more it develops, the more challenging it becomes. And yet, this is what we want.
The more,
Why?
The more what happened there? The more what develops, the more challenging what becomes?
The bigger the world, the bigger your world, the more challenge you have. The more children you have, the more responsibility you have. And yet this is what we want.
And why do we want it again?
Why do we want it? The reason we want it is that this is where the Rotzen Eliki, there's a worldly level of will, and there is a divine level of will. Divine level is that which creates the world. We have a divine sense of reality, not just a worldly sense of reality. This is why we want to develop, bring out more and more the infinite divine quality in our world.
So it's not really that we want it, it's we want it because he wants it.
True, and now you have to think in these words itself. This, he wants it. This is the creation that he made of us. He made us human beings. He made us human beings. He did not make us human beings in the world, just worldly creatures like the animal. He made us human beings in the world, but we are super worldly in the world. He gave us a divine sense of value. He gave us a divine sense of value, a divine sense of meaning of our lives. Not just survival, but actually enhancing it, enriching it, and developing more and more, and reaching up to the source of sources.
Okay,
That's what he made of us.
Right, even though you're saying that's challenging or that can lead one into all kinds of difficulties, we proceed in that direction. We don't keep it simple. We go into developing and responsibilities and...
That's correct. That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
This is what the human being is. And this quality in the human being is the divine spark in the human being.
Okay. I wanted to ask about something earlier in the shir, but maybe somebody else wants to jump in.
Baruch, you have a question?
No, I'm fine with this so far. Thank you.
Okay.
Could you just clarify the spark that you mentioned just now? What was the emphasis of the spark, Rabbi Palti?
Uh, the spark, we always talk about the spark. The significance of the spark is, what's a spark? A spark is a pure presence of fire without a basis of what holds the fire down. Spark is fire by itself, without a keli. That's a spark. The spark is very enticing in our mind because the spark is reminding us, is alluding to the principle that we have light and life, not because we have a physical life, we have a means by which it is manifest on the physical level, but we have life per se, the purity of life itself, the life as it is from the source of the divine source. That's what life is. That's a spark element. This spark provides us with the ability to recognize light in darkness. Because this spark is independent of anything. It's a divine spark itself. Just to give us a demonstration of this experience. You come to an area that's completely undeveloped, a wilderness, a desert. As soon as the human being looks at it, what does he see? He sees what the desert will look like after he cleans it up and after he develops it. Because he sees the divine spark in everything. He sees, yes, it's a desert, but this is also a divine creation. And therefore it has the divine spark that enables it to be illuminated and brought to life. Yeah.
Okay. So earlier in the shir, there was a discussion about the Eved and what he's concerned about.
Let me innocent.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt with a question about what was just said, please?
Yeah.
As a Rabbi Paltil, you said a spark is a fire without a keli, without a base. So how does this, and it doesn't have a keli, doesn't have a base. So how does it last long enough for the human being to make anything of it at all? How come it doesn't just vanish as soon as it appears?
It does.
So what good is that?
One second. It vanishes as soon as it appears. But human being, due to the fact that he's neshama, he knows what he's looking at, doesn't have to touch it, doesn't have to decipher it. He knows where it's coming from. He knows it from its inception, from its source. Because he is a neshama. Also without a keli.
He doesn't have a keli?
No,
Sure.
he's not dependent on the keli. He has a keli to do things in the world, but his life per se is not a keli. Life per se is a pure reality, divine reality.
But sparks tend, when they come off of a fire, for example, sparks tend to extinguish as soon as they come up. They're here, they're gone. They're here, they're gone.
True, they extinguish as soon as they come up in the world, but that momentary presence of the spark makes an impact in the world, makes an impact on the person who observes it, never to be forgotten.
Okay, so that's the impact that it has. He
Yes,
sees it, and as a result of that, he's inspired to do something.
that's right. Never to be forgotten because he connects to it.
Right. Okay.
And how is this related to the Ratzon of Ratzon?
This is a spark that does not have a function. It inspires function, but it itself has no function. That's Ratzon leRatzon. All right.
Back to Yona. Yona
Okay.
wanted to
Thank you.
ask a question.
All right.
Okay, so we had earlier on in the shir the David and what he's concerned about and not concerned about, what's in his realm of imagination, and it seemed like it seems like the master or the real free person has a very wide realm of concern. So the question is, it does seem like healthy people focus on their realm of influence. You have a realm where you can act, and it's quite small, and you'll be effective, or things will be accomplished. And then there's a wider realm of concern. You know, what's happening in North Korea, what's happening with interest rates, endless wide concerns, and the person who's a dilettante or unfocused sort of squanders their attention across this wide realm. So, but today's shir seemed like the opposite. The Eved has a smaller concern, and the real human being has a wide concern. So I'm just looking at how those things interact. And,
Okay. And you have to summarize. Could not
Fine.
get the point.
Fine. It seems like a healthy person has their focus in a limited area of concern and influence. But it seemed like from today's shir that that a person should have the widest possible concern, interest.
All right. So the answer to this question, this is we have already discussed it on a different context. We said many times, you put your foot down on the ground. There's a big earth. You could say unlimited. When you put your foot down on the ground, your foot is standing in this particular spot. And you are being supported by this particular spot of ground. The entire infinity of your support is focused on this one little spot. You're not thinking in terms of, oh, I'm standing on a big earth. Nobody walks on the big earth. People walk on their step-by-step reality. this step-by-step reality is not what you can attribute, so to speak, to small-mindedness of the human narrow-mindedness. Rather, okay, here's the very important point. It is a small place, but this small place is really a divine creation. Every small place is a divine creation. Every small place has divine purpose of being. And it should be developed to its fullest potential, no matter how small, because it's not small. It's all a divine creation.
Great class.